Welcome back to another video. Now in today's episode we're going to be checking out another alternative operating system from the mid to late 90s called SkyOS. And what makes this one pretty unique is it was developed entirely by one person throughout its existence. And no, this was not some script kiddie visual basic project. This actually ended up being a pretty capable system that garnered a bit of a cult following. It began life back in 1996 as a bootloader before evolving into an entire OS that was developed from scratch. So this isn't a Linux distro or based on another operating system, though it was POSIX compatible, at least almost, and had a handful of applications ported over to it. Also, this was a closed source commercial operating system that you had to buy a license for, and during its beta stage, you could get access to development builds by paying a €30 fee. However, prior to version 5, which started development in 2003, it was free to download.
331.2 agile sprints ago, God created the universe, and with it, he created the Talkthua podcast. Sorry, I meant Satan. And as we all know, the devil does indeed wear Prada. What's less known is that he's an Ubuntu user, because of course he is. And he's not just a normie user, but a power user. So much so that he had to make Ubuntu Satanic Edition. Look, I'm not dunking on Ubuntu just because Canonical rejected me. I swear, I'm only a little salty. Developed around the same time the economy broke for real, with beautiful red accents and metal music automatically playing in the background. This distro is more like what a 90s edgy teenager who grew up to be a C-sharp dev thinks what Satanic is. I mean, it was satanic enough that distro launch thought it was too offensive and banned it. That seems wrong. But wait, there's more. Ubuntu Christian Edition, developed with the idea of introducing Christian This was actually pretty practical and useful. It comes pre-installed with software for churches, Bible study software, and content filtering.
I can actually do this.
Staying in touch with religious themes.
I can do this.
It's an Ubuntu-based distro with this
This,
software. Finally,
that, this. Then we can do one of these. Go right over. We can go right over. Where is it? 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 There it is. Yes. And we're gonna select it, and we're gonna go to desktop, and we're gonna, but, oh shoot, I gotta fucking gotta use fucking Qubit torrent or Deluge or something to fucking undo the torrenting or whatever, 'cause that's a thing. I gotta fucking, we're gonna go here, we're gonna go Deluge.
Yeah, sorry about the clickbait. But it has custom themes, login, wallpapers, and all that jazz. There's Linux Mangaka, an improvement on Ubuntu. What started out similarly as an Ubuntu theme, spun out into a full distribution. Unfortunately, it's no longer actively maintained.
It's not bad news, that's great news.
Okay, so for the final Linux distro, I could do a whole separate video on. This distro sent me down a rabbit hole that I hope my family and friends never find out about, and is ultimately the reason why I will never do a face reveal on this channel. NiArch. Self-described as the perfect Linux distribution for degenerate weebs, it's got a ton of cool features. A catgirl downloader, a dream waifu assistant, which from the looks of it seems like a pretty decent assistant, all things considered. A material uwu to make any waifu your wallpaper. I'm a 25-year-old grown-ass man that just said that sentence. Anyway, I'm not gonna spoil this anymore, but this definitely deserves an install on my crusty-ass ThinkPad. Above OS. In their own words, a custom Rice meme OS inspired by a Reddit post. Features include...
Hello everybody and welcome back to another video, and oh boy, what have I gotten myself into this time? Well, this is going to be another one of those Weeb OS focused videos, kind of like the Ubuntu video that guys really seem to like those. I got a few comments on both of those videos recommending Ubuntu to me,
Where's the other fucking... What?
Entire operating system, but it's rather a set of themes and visual enhancements, if you want to call them that. I guess that's very subjective. That you can make to your existing install of Ubuntu Linux to weebify it a little bit. And this does a lot more than Ubuntu does. It really, as you can... Hi! Really? This again? Are you bored of... No! Well, I got the OS for you. Look, man, I need some coffee, right? If I come back and there's some weird shit on my laptop, I'm gonna be pissed. Okay, cool. Glad I got that down. Oh, God.
Oh, that's why it's not fucking typing. It's because I don't have it fucking plugged in. Oh, that's why.
Like me. But for real though, after being inspired by using the Discord server, which I encourage you not to join, that place is hell on earth, I embarked on an adventure to find a few Linux distros that are, say, a little bit unconventional. So let's have a look at what I found, shall we? But before we do that, in true Dragon rip-off fashion, we're going to install an SSD. Well, another reason being I just don't have any more spare hard disks. So, yeah, we're just going to use this one, which I...
Huh? You fucking kidding me? Why is nothing loading?
Now, sometimes I'm curious how differently the Linux community would have developed if instead of the mascot being Tux, you know, the penguin, it was instead Xenia, a fox girl. Okay, now wait a minute, what the fuck am I talking about? And well, I don't blame you for not knowing, because I didn't actually know she existed until recently either. So if you're curious, there's a website in the description, and yeah, very good website, might I add. Truly an example of modern web design. Now, back to the original point, there probably would have been a couple more of these. Wrong site. Ubuntu Furry Remix. Now, what is Ubuntu Furry Remix? Or as it is more commonly known, UFurmix. The thing is, I don't really know. You see, there is actually very, very, very little information about this operating system. Another thing that makes it even harder is that it's a bit old and it's also abandoned. But this is the only operating system that I could find that claims to be Ubuntu for furries. And I can put that in the video title and you can't stop me from doing that. So what we're going to be doing today is just having a bit of a look, and perhaps, I don't know, this might be the very first time that this operating system has actually been demoed on YouTube. So let's get started, shall we? I feel like we've done this 1,000 million times. Turn it on, let's see the screen, press Think Advantage button.
File sharing, programming, and torrents data will be available to other. Upload any contact issue. Yeah.
And now we can see that beautiful
how do I use this?
Oh my. Very nice. Look at that.
I assume it's that. And then I need desktop. I need popos.iso.torrent. We'll hit OK.
This is also a look at Ubuntu 10.0
Thank you for choosing Ubuntu 10.04 LTS. Oh no. You notice how it looks like garbage? I wonder if maybe it's not compatible with this graphics card, because this OS, it's older than this computer. Oh no, this computer's from 2012. And this operating system's from 2010. Oh, well, I hope it's okay. Oh god, I forgot about that. Completely slipped my mind. You guys remember back when Ubuntu was meant to be an OS to revive old computers? Yeah, I missed that. Use tags to describe your photos so they can easily... I can't read. Use the export option to write your photos to CDs, email them to friends, or share them online. To get started, choose F-Spot. Why the hell did they choose the name F-Spot? Good God. I remember this box. It's been so long since I've installed Ubuntu, I don't even know if it's still like that. Remove the install disk and close the tray if any. Install disk. You think I'm some sort of peasant? And now here we go, booting into... Oh wow, that is the fastest boot up I have ever seen. What the hell is this layout? Oh, look at this. Applications, places, preferences. Oh man, Ubuntu Software Center. Look at this UI. It's like GNOME, isn't it? I think so. Wow. But why is that up there? How does this work? Why are there two bars? Wow, it comes with Blender. Nice. Inkscape? Did this come with Inkscape? I know it didn't always come with Blender. Excuse me? That's the thing. I have never used Ubuntu 10.04 before. I don't know what they changed. This is a problem. Tomboy notes, huh? Welcome to... I'm not going to be able to keep it together for this. Use the Start Here note to begin organizing your ideas and thoughts. I've got some thoughts, alright. Okay, cool. Pretty sure... What is Cruncho Pastel? I have never heard of it before. Oh yeah, but this is very much a known thing. Let's see. New. Oh, right, okay. Okay, this is a problem. Okay, so up arrow. I see, so it's a Tetris clone. Very nice. That has something. Like idea you've been saying for a while. Oh no. I suppose that's about due. Call you back later, hey? What's the achievement say? I can't even read it. I turn on a fucking light. What the fuck am I supposed to do with that? Bruh! Hi, I'm Smithy, and today rings on the word arranged in the last 2 times. And I don't just mean because of the outfit. We're not even using an IA32 this time. So as you probably know, the options these days for new operating systems or Power PC Max is fairly limited and ever shrinking. But what if I said there's another way? What if I said it's an infinitely customizable and optimizable operating system that is as up-to-date as you want it to be? Well, you better grow up your or get some pastel pink thigh highs because you're not like the answer, it's shit too. Yeah, it's like...
Oops.
That has something. Like idea you've been saying for a while. Oh no. I suppose that's about due. Call you back later, hey? Hi, I'm Smithy, and today rings on the word arranged in the last 2 times. And I don't just mean because of the outfit. We're not even using an IA32 this time. So as you probably know, the options these days for new operating systems or Power PC Max is fairly limited and ever shrinking. But what if I said there's another way? What if I said it's an infinitely customizable and optimizable operating system that is as up-to-date as you want it to be? Well, you better grow up your or get some pastel pink thigh highs because you're not like the answer, it's Gen 2. Yeah, it's like Gen 2 on Power PC. God help us. 2004, and has a 64GB SD card and 256MB of RAM, all powered by a 1.2 GHz PowerPC G4 processor. We're using this because it works, which is unfortunately where the which is a shame because this one was cooler and had 2 CPUs. But oh well, I guess I'm gonna be able to find out later. So I kind of glossed over it earlier, but what is Gen 2? Well, to use an example and oversimplifying here, this will piss people off. Essentially, if Arch Linux is Linux Minecraft, then Gen 2 Linux is making your own Minecraft. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. Wow, that sounds fucking stupid. Why would you do that? That sounds dumb. Well, essentially, since we're making Minecraft ourselves, we can control what blocks are in the game, how they're implemented, and how efficiently they're programmed. Usually at the cost of time. But instead of Minecraft, it's an operating system. And instead of blocks, it's programs. And thus, we can build the operating system to our exact specifications. In our case, PowerPC. That's the beauty of Gen 2. You're the installer, and the installation is compiling the operating system package by package, e-build by e-build. I expect us to have useful operating system about 5 days to 2 weeks. What did I say again?
Okay. So now how do I get it?
You're going to Detroit.
It's done.
Those of you who are more familiar with the Gen 2 installation process might already see that we have a pretty small major problem. Well, yes, we passed the requirements for running Gen 2 with flying colors. We don't pass the requirements for actually installing it, which is a problem. Now you might be thinking,
There we go.
I just put like 4 gigabytes of fucking swap on a hunk of shit and just fucking send it, right? Not exactly, because, well, yes, the SD card is fast, DRAM is significantly faster. So to make this the least painful process as possible, we're going to want to have the most amount of DRAM we possibly can. And
I'm just gonna throw this in here.
this computer to its full capacity. Using this 1 gigabyte stick, I definitely didn't get out of a PC. No PCs were harmed from making this video, I swear. So adding this stick will give us a full 1.2 gigabytes to install off of. And you might be thinking, wow, 1200 megabytes, that's a weird number. Why isn't it like 2 gigabytes or 1 gigabyte or, you know, an even number? And the answer to that is because Steve Apple thought it would be really funny if he, instead of giving 2 upgrade slots, one already pre-filled with 256 megabytes, to instead just solder to the fuck off motherboard. So we can't exactly upgrade that without kidnapping DOS Dude 1, and I'm pretty sure they would not appreciate that. So let's just put the RAM in the computer and just sell for 1.2 and some
Put the RAM in the computer.
Take a flathead screwdriver, put it in here, and then turn it 360 degrees, and then just grab these clips, pull the keyboard off, pull it down, and then now we just need to remove the Wi-Fi card. You really shouldn't use a screwdriver for this.
Select as an ISO hybrid, but its creators have not made it compatible with ISO file copy mode. As a result, DD image. Okay.
Now we need to remove this little metal cage according to this diagram right here. But I've done this so many times, I might as well fucking speed run it. And now we can take this little metal part. Putting that Wi-Fi antenna back in is a real pain, so just like flip it over like that, I guess. And now we can just take our RAM, line it up, with the notch, push it in, and then down. And the RAM is now upgraded from a company that would later on, if it were fucking legal, fill their computers with glue and plastic explosive. This is pretty fucking cool. Then that's how you're supposed to replace the hard drive. An experience I still have nightmares about. Now luckily we don't need the Wi-Fi card to turn the computer on, so I'm just gonna take this, plug it in here, turn it on. And it works. Nice. Now we need an install CD. Also, I guess I should probably put this shit
Close
back
that tab and that tab and that tab and that tab. We're done watching Always Sunny in Philadelphia, and we're done downloading Qubit Torrent, and we're done downloading the other thing. We're just writing the image.
So before we start, I'd like to give a huge thank you to Nova the Gen 2 Goddess, Amber, DistroHopper39B, as well as David Phantom for answering my stupid questions, and just in general helping with the hopeful execution of this project. And also everyone who left various forum posts and blogs over the years of their experiences running Gen 2 on PowerPC Max. They truly blocked so that I could learn. Many people died on this path, and so will we, because I have a dumb small brain. a second, Mustard. So let's get started, shall we? So now to do the second half of the first step. That's right, we've actually already started the installation according to the handbook. The first part of step 1 is to find and install CD. And yeah, so hopefully the rest of the installation will be that easy. So now to actually start the install CD, all we need to do is plug it in, which I'd like to mention this part is not in the handbook. You gotta turn it on, you take the install CD, and then you just kinda and it works. Nice. So now I need to be very quick because if left alone it will try to auto boot the PowerPC 64 version for God knows whatever reason. I don't know why they put that as the first one. I can't imagine there are that many people installing Gen 2 on PowerPC 64 machines, or at least more than PowerPC 32 machines, but I don't know. This part kind of takes a while. I have no idea why. Now we're in the Gen 2 installation CD. So something you might have noticed is that this screen is like really bad and this keyboard is somehow worse. So first order of business is going to be remedying this. Well, actually this installation CD comes with SSHD. So all we need to do is run RC service, SSHD start. Grab some internet, plug it in. An IPA. Oh, God, the space bar. And now we have an IP address, so now all we need to do is connect to it. Okay, what an interestingly worded message. Oh yeah, we need to actually give it a password first. Forgot about that part. And we're in. Just to show you that I'm not like actually cheating, if we do cat/proc/CPU info, as you can see we are running a PowerPC 7447A with Ultivec, and it is an Well, that's one way to do it. Okay. So if we now run, what is it? Free. The fuck is that bullshit? Okay. Free-H. As we can see, our RAM upgrade works. So now at this point, I better know what you're probably thinking. So this is where you start the new installer, right? You just gotta do like, I don't know, /gen2-install or some shit, right? No. When I say you're installing it from scratch, I didn't mean from the grocery store, bitch. I meant from the woods. Look at this. They don't even give you a woods. Luckily, we have and will be mostly sticking to the Gen 2 handbook, which I must say is one of the most well-written and well-articulate pieces of literature I have ever had the honor of laying my eyes on. In fact, I would go as far as saying that if you do not know how to install Gen 2 even after reading the handbook, you should probably stop using computer and return to preschool. Except for when it's wrong. Just like, actually wrong. But yeah, let's actually get this going, shall we? Because I don't know if you know this or not, but this is gonna take like kind of a while. What the fuck is this? So the first thing I want to do before we move on to the next step of the handbook is to actually see what's up with the CPU governor. Because this is a PowerPC 7447A, this CPU has something called DFS. That essentially means when the CPU isn't being used, just like SpeedStep but cursed, it will clock the CPU down to only 600 megahertz. So I want to make sure that Linux can actually properly take care of DFS, because I don't want to compile Gen 2 at 600 megahertz. So the first thing I want to do is actually max the CPU and then see what the speed is to see if it's actually clocking up. But before we do even that, what we should probably do is load in the screen. The reason for that being, since we're doing this over SSH, if the SSH session is interrupted or something, we don't want whatever process we're running to actually be quit, which will happen if we're not running inside of a virtual terminal like Screen. I know there's lighter ways to do this, but Screen is just the way that I know how to do it. Screen-ls, as we can see, we are now loaded into a screen. But what we're going to do to max the CPU is TD. So essentially what this is doing is it's taking random shit and putting it nowhere. Okay, so now if I Control A detach, which gets us out of the screen. I can now do top, and we can see that we're using 100% of the CPU with DD. So now if okay, the CPU is now running at 1.2 gigahertz, so Linux can actually make proper use of the dynamic frequency scaling. I was worried about that, so that's good. We're going to be compiling Gentoo at the CPU's maximum speed. And now we can Control C this. As you can see, we're transferring at 64.9 megabytes per second, which was very close to being nice. So now that we're in our screen and we do screen dash ls to make sure we're in it, we can now start the very first step in installing Gentoo, which is configuring the network and making sure it's working properly. Which I'm not totally sure, but I think we're pretty close. Yeah, so the net is working. Very nice, very nice. Cool. Step 2 done already. Goddamn, that was fucking quick. So now that the net is working, the next step is to configure the block device, or hard disk. Now, if you're wondering why this video is coming out so late, this is a pretty big reason why. It isn't exactly straightforward or normal in how it works. Actually, because it's PowerPC, it uses open firmware, and is a New World Mac. It only boots off of HFS formatted partitions on APM formatted drives, which means we can't use regular F-disk. So yeah, we can't use that. Instead, we have to use a program called Mac F-disk. A lovely program that has not been updated since like 2004. To have SDA. And now the first thing we should do is print. And as we can see, there is no partition table. I wonder when that happened. Question mark to get a list of what everything does. And the first thing we need to do is initialize a partition map, which is done with I. And then press enter. And if we press P again, as you can see, we now have a partition map. And now this is where things get interesting, because I didn't know for the longest time how exactly this is supposed to be set up. But after a lot of research, I've figured the best way to do this is probably just exactly how it says in the handbook, but with a little bit of padding, as you'll see. So now that we have a partition map, we now need to press B. This will create an Apple boot block, first block. And now it should be to partition. So now if we print the partition map back again, we should see that we now have an 800 kilobyte Apple boot block. We'll get into what that is for later. This isn't /boot, it's actually something very different. Apple computers don't need a /boot because that's where the bootloader goes, I think. So the next thing we need to do is create the swap. So now we need to do C, and then 3P, which is the third partition. Now this is what I mean when I say we're going to do it with a bit of padding. The thing is, I don't know if the kernel needs to be stored in the boot block, or if it can just be stored on the root partition, so all of our work doesn't get undone and all of our compilation has to be erased. I'm going to make this kind of big. The kernel at most could be 100 megabytes if I were to guess, so what I'm going to do is actually give us a 5 gigabyte swap partition. So we're just going to call it swap. Now if we print it back again, we now have 5 gigabytes of swap. Now, this is fucking massive, but I have a good reason. And that's for if we do actually need to expand the boot block so that we can put a kernel in it if we need to, or if the bootloader is too big, we can just make swap smaller and make it bigger. We can't make the start of any partition different without erasing it. So I would rather that be the swap, which we can just swap off, resize, and swap back on, instead of that being the root partition where we would then have to start over again. So we can take a gigabyte away from this, and that would have been 4 gigabytes would have been what I went with otherwise. So now we need to create the root partition. So we're going to do 4P. So C, 4P. Enter length, and now since this is going to be the root partition, we want to use the rest of the disk. So what I'm going to do is just press enter.
What?
Maybe if I enter 4P again. Oh, okay, there we go. So we're going to name it root. Now if we print it back, we now have our entire partitions ready for the installation. So now we need to write it with W. The drive is blank, we're not losing anything. And now it'll sync disks. And now if we do P again, we should see our partition map is still there. So now, I haven't tried this. I want to see if Fdisk can make anything. Oh no. Oh boy. Oh no. So we can't use Fdisk anymore because Fdisk is apparently only for NVR and GPT disks, and this is an APM disk. So instead of that, we have to do that. So now we have SDA1, which we will not be touching. We have SDA2, which we will be imminently, and SDA4, which is where the install will actually be going. So now we need to actually format these partitions. So the first thing we need to do is mkfs.ext4. This will be our root partition, SDA.
We have a problem.
New overnight, a Russian
attack by a Russian
over the Chernobyl nuclear power plant.
On February 14th, Russia flew a kamikaze drone into Chernobyl. Yes, that Chernobyl, the nuclear power plant that was the site of the worst radioactive accident in the history of humanity. Now, there's a hole through the protective shell or sarcophagus that guards Chernobyl big enough to drop an SUV through. We're here to tell you why this is a way bigger deal than you may have thought, and what Russia's game is.
Добрый вечер, товарищи. Все вы знаете, недавно нас постигла беда. Авария на Чернобыльской атомной электростанции.
Chernobyl is one of the few pieces of Ukrainian history that nearly everyone in the world has heard of. At the time of the accident in 1986, only 5% of the radioactive reactor core was scattered into the environment. That was enough to lead.
Linux is an operating system mostly associated with the Hackerman meme of Rami Malek, and loosely known for its utility of keeping the modern software ecosystem alive. The average Linux enjoyer, when not correcting that it's actually GNU plus Linux, started their journey in the awareness phase. In this phase, you're basically just a normal human being, until you look into those mesmerizing penguin eyes that changes the trajectory of your life. But that's a later problem. Whether you heard about Linux at your college classes, or when using the urinal of a shady bar, and a man in peculiar headwear comes to the stall right next to you, and whispers so softly in your ear, I use Arch by the way, that Linux exists, and may be aware of the benefits. But you're still gonna go home and boot up your spyware of choice. Whether it's America or China stealing your data to train LLMs, it doesn't really matter to you. You still want to live in the walled gardens of whatever psyop you choose. The worst case scenario in the awareness phase is that you subscribe to this mindset, and eventually your wife leaves you and you go in a downward spiral. Or by the stroke of some miracle from God, you become the normie. The normie uses Linux in some capacity. Maybe you're an engineer whose manager told them to go do AWS stuff. It would be a good learning experience. When in reality, the last funding round didn't go so well, and now they can't afford an actual DevOps engineer. Or you're using it for my personal favorite reason. Penguin look cool. Whatever your reason, you're most likely on Mint or Pop OS.
God damn it.
You find distros. You're probably a pretty decent programmer or systems administrator. This is the most sensible and rational place to be if you're a Linux user. Here's the thing. Normie has such a negative connotation around it that you're probably angry if you fall into this camp. But I mean, normies have it pretty good. Imagine not carrying the burden of how billion-dollar companies hijack your brain and entire society around us. Normies have the best of both worlds. Penguin look cool, Terminal look cool. This is the stage I recommend to anyone. Then forget the wider ecosystem. You still have a shot of living a relatively normal life, until you fall into the pipeline phase. Pipeliners are people that went a bit too far with Linux. And unfortunately, Linux has many pipelines you can fall into. You can start with the distro hopper. As hard as it is to believe, I was once young. Then I learned about distro hopping. Now I'm no longer young, nor do I like using Linux. Distro hopping is a chronic addiction suffered mostly by Linux users in their early stages of an existential crisis. In the beginning, it may manifest itself as a clever and practical way to learn about new systems and package managers. But eventually, the adrenaline of installing a new distro wears off, leaving the user to find the most intricate problems within the system to justify another fresh install. Eventually, the distro hopper does realize that most distros are just as fun to as Debian with a different desktop environment, but only after burning through 100 different distros and nitpicking every last core utility. It's at this point they enter the Ricer pipeline. The Ricer is an artist, and the desktop environment is their canvas. For most people, an operating system is a means to an end, a utility. For the Ricer, the main purpose of any distribution is to install as much software as they can to have the most interesting looking setup to post on r/UnixCorn. They gave up on useless things like system administration, programming, leaving the house, or having hobbies, in favor of i3 gaps. I mean, can you blame them? The SOX pipeline. Many users, actually just Arch users, for reasons unknown, tend to adopt these SOX. Now the final stage is Gen 2. If you're in this camp, you're unlikely to be watching my videos. You're happy living off your farm and feeding your free and open source chickens. Every interaction with technology is accompanied by a firearm. So is every interaction with wider society. You definitely have the skills and capabilities of being your DevOps engineer, but you won't deal with most companies because they pay in fiat and not blockchain coin. This is the final stage of Linux usage, where you've not only given up on software, but society as a whole. You realize that we live in a world designed to be suboptimal. We must return this walk, either to nature or to God, as a single omnipotent Linux user. My honest piece of advice is to get out while you're still a normie. But if you're dumb enough to falter the wider pipeline, have you tried, I don't know, becoming smarter by trying out the sponsor of today's video,
No.
Brilliant.org. Brilliant is a learning platform with thousands of lessons on math and science. Brilliant does an excellent job of introducing you to new scientific concepts, but most importantly, it helps you recognize patterns.
What is up, most distinguished patrons of this channel? Today we have a viewer request, and a ridiculous one at that, and not just one reviewer, but multiple reviewers over the past year have been hounding me to do this. Well, not hounding me, but you get the idea. And that is test JP Weld versus an actual weld to see how strong it actually is. So that's what we're going to be tackling today. Let's get into it. Now, I can hear you through the internet already screaming at your computer or your phone. Well, no, you dummy. Of course it's not a substitute for welding. And I hear you, buddy. But one of the things...
On November 5th, 2024, a bunch of security researchers came across a program called Egg. Curious, they ran it, but the moment they did, it vanished. No error messages, no logs, nothing. As if it never existed in the first place. Little did they know, this was an intelligently crafted malware that's main purpose was to spy on universities and government institutions across North America and also Asia. This is the story of the autocolor malware, a sophisticated Linux backdoor that hid in plain sight. The part of this video is sponsored by Slack. More on that at the end of the show. When people think about
Fucking hit all the fucking stages at once.